All right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called DC Cab, 1983, also known as Street Fleet. Giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was all right. It was very funny, but I wasn't laughing at some of the jokes, like the Abraham Lincoln jokes were dumb. It's rated R. It's pretty decent. It's got some DNA in the beginning when they go to a strip club. A DC Cab, when these guys hit the streets, guess what hits the fan? It's got a picture of Mr. T ripping the door off of his DC Cab, pointing his finger like this with his mohawk and his feather earrings. I told you, fool! It's a 1983 U.S. comedy film written and directed by Joel Schumacher, based on a story by Topper Carew and Schumacher, and starring Max Gail, who played Stan Wojciechowicz on the sitcom Barney Miller from 1975 to 1982. 7 seasons, Barney Miller. Adam Baldwin, who was my bodyguard, Mr. T, who's gotten like 20 COVID shots because he's Mr. T. Charles Barnett, I don't know who he is. I guess he's a comedian. He doesn't look recognizable to me. Maybe you can point him out. One of his other movies. Gary Busey, who plays himself like 40 years from now. Or he plays himself 35 years from this movie. I mean, he talks the exact same way in this movie as he does now. All crazy stuff. Marsha Warfield, somebody from Night Court. I used to tape Night Court on my blank VHS tape, but with fuzzy reception, but I never actually went back and watched it. Anyways, Whitman Mayo Jr. Whitman Blount Mayo Jr. He played Grady Wilson on Sanford and Son. He's pretty good. Naive but good-natured young man Albert Hockenberry Baldwin arrives in Washington, D.C. with plans to work for his late father's army buddy Harold Gail, owner of a rundown District of Columbia cab company. Aware of the sorry state of his business and from the growing competition from the popular Emerald Cab Company, Harold wants to clean it up, but does not have the financial means to do so. Complicating matters is the motley group of cab drivers that he has working for him. They all see driving as a dead-end job while they wait for better lives, until Albert inspires them to work as a team. A valuable violin is found in one of the cabs, earning Harold and his wife a $10,000 reward as owners of the cab. Harold wants to share the money with the drivers and let them invest in the cab company as partners. However, his greedy wife, Myrna, picks up the reward money, and she tosses Harold and Albert's belongings out of the house. The cabbies are not happy about losing their share of the reward, so Albert decides to donate $6,063 of his own money to the cab company, and he convinces the drivers to stay, make something of the company and themselves. The cabbies completely overhaul the entire business until the revitalized company soon supplants Emerald Cab as the most popular in the city. Later on, the cabbies work together to rescue Albert and a diplomat's 2 children after they're kidnapped. It was a pretty decent comedy. I laughed at probably 75% of the jokes. Well, at least half of the jokes were funny, and there are tons of jokes in this. DC Cab grossed $16,134,627 in theaters on a budget of $8 million. That's pretty good. Return on investment, running time 100 minutes, release date December 16, 1983. DC Cab received negative reviews from film critics. Roger Ebert gave the film 2 out of 4 stars, which is the same that I'm giving it. But I wouldn't call it a negative review. That's kind of I liked it, but I didn't love it kind of thing. DC Cab is not an entirely bad movie, according to Roger Ebert, but it feels like a movie with a split personality. The kidnapping plot was praised for being fresh, while the stolen violin plot was described as paralyzingly boring. Overall, he described it as mindless, likable confusion. Yeah, I'd call it that. Critic Edward Sargent of the Washington Post writes in his review, despite its shortcomings, DC Cab is an hour and 40 minutes worth of finger-popping music and gags. I didn't like the music in this. I forgot to put music by in the description. I'll have to fix that. But viewers should remember that this low-budget film features large doses of vulgarity meant to elicit several cheap laughs. Yeah. Kind of surprising to see Mr. T in a rated R movie, actually. Critic Janet Maslin of the New York Times wrote in her review, DC Cab is a musical mob scene, a raucous, crowded movie that's fun as long as it stays wildly busy and a lot less interesting when it wastes time on plot or conversation. There's a lot of talent in the large cast, and Joel Schumacher, the director, generally keeps things bustling. Mr. Schumacher was once a costume designer, which helps explain why everything here is so wildly colorful as the characters joke around in outfits that are traffic stopping. The movie has just the sort of bouncy, frantic, dopey humor to please the young fans of Mr. T, who is one of its stars. I wasn't allowed to watch rated R movies, which is why I'm watching it now. When I was 13 years old. However, I did manage to sneak into Trading Places, though, with one of the pot-smoking neighbors that I used to have in Redwood City. However, the film makers have thrown in enough R-rated material to make DC Cab slightly out of reach for very young audiences. Yeah. My point exactly, which is why I'm watching it ex post facto 35 years from now, from the movie date, I guess. Well, more than 35. It's actually 40 years, like 39 years, something like that. Ian Bookwalter of Washington City Paper wrote in his review, I'm not going to argue that DC Cab is a great movie or even a good one. It wasn't a hit when it was released in December 1983, and it would probably be a stretch to even call it a cult favorite, since whatever cult exists around it is probably limited to Mr. T completists and a cadre of local film obsessives. Still, by any rational measure, DC Cab is pretty terrible. The plot is standard 80s underdog struck back fare, and the titular cab company, a gang of misfits and outcasts trying to avoid being shut down by a corrupt, power-hungry hack inspector who's in the pocket of a smug satin jacket-wearing drivers of the Emerald Cab Companies. Basically, Revenge of the Nerds with taxis. Yeah, I was thinking of that too. The characters, the cab drivers, are a bunch of nerds, basically. The script is ostensibly a comedy, but most of its humor is unintentional. We like unintentional humor on this channel. What we don't like are stupid jokes about Abraham Lincoln. Mr. T actually does this to the Abraham Lincoln Memorial, which is kind of stupid because Lincoln hated blacks and he owned slaves. But they go on and on about how Lincoln freed slaves and all this stuff. So whatever. I won't go into that for the 100th time. All right. Irene Cara performed the main title theme to the film. Irene Cara Escalera. She's very pretty. I like how the cab driver has a picture of her in his visor. She goes, "Oh, I'm going to the White House. I'm going to see Ronald Reagan." Irene Cara performed the main theme to the film. I don't even know who she was. Oh, she played Coco Hernandez in the 1980 musical film Fame. And she recorded the film's title song, Fame, which reached #1 in the several countries. Now I know who she is. Gary Busey performed Why Baby Why. The soundtrack was released in 1983. DC Cab was released in theaters on December 16, 1983. The film was released on DVD on March 1st, 2005 by Universal Studios Home Entertainment. And I have the disc right here, but it's when you pop it in the DVD player, it just plays the movie. There's no bonus feature. And then when the movie ends, it plays the movie again. You don't even have to hit the play button. It plays automatically. DC Cab was released on the digital distribution app Google Play. A high-definition Blu-ray released by Kino Lorber was released on December 1st, 2020. And there you have it, my DC Cab review. Let's click on the soundtrack. All right. DC Cab, music from the original motion picture soundtrack, is a soundtrack to the 1983 film DC Cab. The producers selected artists for the album who were popular with young black audience, and the popularity of one of the film stars, Mr. T, prompted the film's distributor to release the film 4 months earlier than planned. DC Cab performed poorly at the box office, and the soundtrack peaked at number 181 at the album chart in Billboard magazine. The first of the 3 singles released from the album, The Dream, Hold On to Your Dream, by Irene Cara, had some success on multiple singles charts in the U.S. and had a music video that received airplay on MTV. Cara later claimed in a lawsuit that her musical contribution was arranged by the head of her record company. The other 2 singles, Deadline USA by Shalimar. I don't even know who that is. I guess I'm not into 80s black pop music. I don't know how else to describe it. And the film's title song by Peabo Bryson. I don't know who that is either. Scored on the Black Singles chart. Critics in Billboard gave the film high marks, whereas the reviewer AllMusic gave it 1.5 stars. The score for DC Cab was written by Giorgio Moroder, who produced and wrote the music for several of the songs on the soundtrack album. The film's producer, Topper Carew, explained how he chose the artists involved, such as Shalimar, Peebo Bryson, and DeBarge. I know who DeBarge is. They were in The Last Dragon, too. We were looking for urban contemporary music acts who were particularly strong in the Black community with young people, yet had the potential for crossing over. Crossing over to what? Some plans to involve Black artists in the film and or soundtrack did not materialize. Carew mentioned an attempt to have Mr. T, one of the stars of the film, cut a rap record for the album. That never happened. Oh, that's too bad. I like Mr. T, but they should have had the other characters do more scenes than Mr. T. I mean, he does manage to get a few laughs, but the thing where he does this to the Abraham Lincoln Monument, which I've been to, by the way, when I was about 10 years old, before this movie was made. That scene was kind of ridiculous. A little over the top, Mr. T. While Irene Cara and Karen came on, I don't know who that is, made the final cut for the soundtrack. Their fellow Flashdance soundtrack albums, Circle V did not. Oh, Flashdance alums Circle V did not, despite a 1983 report of their involvement that also listed Musical Youth as part of the project. Musical Youth were even filmed for a scene in the movie that was left on the cutting room floor, while plans for Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five to appear on the screen also fell through. Man, if they had put Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five on this soundtrack, I would have liked the movie better. I love that band. This is one of the bands that I would have preferred on the soundtrack. A track titled DC Cab that is different from the Peebo Bryson song on this album was credited to Grandmaster Molly Mall. Melvin Glover, better known by his stage name as Grandmaster Molly Mall, and the Furious Five on the 1999 compilation Adventures on the Wheels of Steel, sorry. All right. I'm not seeing the Molly Mall version of DC Cab on here. I'm seeing the Peebo Bryson version. So, another bummer. It's not on the soundtrack. It should have been. DC Cab was originally slated for an April 1984 release in the theaters, and the soundtrack from MCA Records was also in stores in February. Because Mr. T's new television series, The A-Team, was a top 10 hit in the Nielsen ratings, the film's distributor, Universal Pictures, decided to take advantage of his popularity by moving the film's release up to December 16, 1983. Plans that had been made to market the film using the cast before the original April opening date were canceled. Cara's What a Feeling album had been released by Geffen Records on November 2nd, 1983. without the first single to be released from the soundtrack, The Dream, Hold On to Your Dream. So not only did she do Fame, but she did What a Feeling. But one of the film's executive producers, John Peters, arranged to have her album pulled from store shelves and reissued to include it. The movie opened in ninth place in its first weekend of release, and it earned a total of $19 million over the course of its theatrical run. Why did they say it was a financial flop? It made $8 million. MCA had previously listed soundtracks at $9.98, but for DC Cab, the list price was lowered to $8.98 because the company felt they had a hit album regardless of the film's success. Because of the film's new release date, MCA was planning for the soundtrack to be on the store shelves. In December, the album was published on the new LP tape releases list in Billboard in January 1984 issue and debuted in the February 11th issue on the magazine's top LPs and tapes chart, where it got as high as number 181 during its 4 weeks there. The same issue included its first appearance on the magazine's Black LPs chart, where it spent 7 weeks and peaked at number 56. So if you like black singles from 1983, this is for you. If you like Kara, this is for you. I like Kara. The video for The Dream used scenes from the film alongside footage of Kara playing herself in her home and around the streets of London. The cabbies have sent her a note that reads, "We miss you, Irene, your friends at DC Cab," and Kara lip syncs and dances to the music as the comedic visual elements from the film are interwoven throughout. Billboard listed the clip in the new videos added section of its MTV ads and rotation column, which noted that it was added to the cable channel's playlist of music videos as of December 14th in the December 24 issue. The album received mixed reviews at the time of its release. Billboard dance tracks columnist Brian Chin insisted that the soundtrack was an album to rave over, had high praise for Moroder and Ramone, describing the project as a fascinating, satisfying indicator of how much study that team has put into new American production styles since creating the music for Flashdance. He liked Shalimar's Deadline USA much more than their recent hit Dead Giveaway, and described Charmaine's Knocks Me on My Feet as being in the very voguish vocal group electronics fusion mode. Nelson George, from the rhythm and blues columnist for the rhythm and blues columnist for Billboard, wrote that Peabo Bryson's title track was the best up-tempo song that Bryson had ever sung. In a retrospective review for AllMusic, J.T. Griffith dismissed the film as a poor relic from the early Reagan era that was not up to the quality of the soundtracks for Fame, Flashdance, or Footloose. They should have added Grandmaster Flash. In 1985, Kara filed a lawsuit against Network Records and Al Corey Inc. for, among other things, withholding most of the royalties she had earned from her recordings for the label. Corey, the former RSO executive who signed Kara to his newly formed Network Records a few years earlier, was acting like a manager, which he shouldn't have been doing, according to Kara. She alleges that in a deal Corey arranged for her to participate in music for DC Cab, a Los Angeles County Superior Court ruled in her favor in 1993, and she began receiving royalties. All right. Well, I got to go pick up my son. I'm running a little bit late. This video is another 24 minutes. I've been trying to make my videos longer, more detailed. Karate Man's the only one who will sit an hour in the chat room. Everybody else will just leave after 5 seconds, which is probably what they do when they watch my videos. But I've always been about quantity, not quality. Now I'm trying to read off the Wikipedia page and insert my own comments in between. And I hope you like it. The new style of my channel. Try to mix it up a bit. Karate Man found another Olivia Gruner film that I had reviewed with David Carradine in it. And he misspelled Olivier. He spelled it Oliver. So I had to correct him, of course. Must be the Australian beer spelling. Adrian Karate Man. Karate Man has problems spelling my Netflix queue. But he says it's the Australian version of this of the word, sort of like petrol versus gas or something. I don't know. All right. Well, that's the end of my review. Laters.